Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to Life Single Review. We're sending you warmth, love, and all the good energy today. We hope wherever you are, you're surrounded by people who care about you. Today's story is incredibly special because we're seeing the world through the innocent eyes of a child, little Maya. We're going to experience her journey from loneliness to belonging, from questions to answers, from wishing for a father to finally having one. Have you ever remembered what it felt like to wish for something so deeply when you were young? Do you know how a child understands words like divorce or new family? What moment makes a child decide to call a stranger Dad? How deep does a child's sadness go when friends ask, "Why don't you have a father?" Can the love of a man who isn't your biological father truly replace what's missing? Today, Maya herself will tell you her story. A story of hope, patience, and the moment everything changed. Before we begin this touching journey, please hit that subscribe button to follow Maya as she grows up with the love she deserves. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss these heartfelt stories. If you believe that love doesn't need blood to be real, give us a like and share this with someone who needs to hear it. And please comment below about someone in your life who loved you like a parent, even if they weren't. Now, let's step into Maya's world and see what a father truly means to a little girl's heart. I remember the first time a friend at school asked me, "Where's your dad?" I was so small then, maybe 4 years old, sitting in the classroom during playtime. The other children were drawing pictures of their families: mom, dad, brothers, sisters, pets. I drew Mom and me, just the two of us. When my friend pointed at my picture and asked that question, I didn't know what to say. My throat felt tight, and I just looked down at my crayons, pretending I didn't hear. But I did hear. And the question stayed with me like a shadow I couldn't shake off. The other kids would talk about their fathers, how Dad took them to the park, bought them toys, carried them on his shoulders. I would listen quietly, wondering what that felt like. One day I came home and asked Mom the question that had been burning inside me. "Mom, do I have a dad?" I'll never forget the look on her face. She pulled me into her arms and started crying. She told me, "Your dad went far away, sweetheart." I didn't understand what far away meant. Was it another city? Another country? Heaven? But I knew it was something sad because Mom cried every time I asked. So I learned not to ask anymore. I learned to be silent about the empty space in our family because talking about it made Mom hurt. I didn't want Mom to hurt. Those were such difficult days. Looking back now, I remember nights when Mom couldn't sleep. I'd wake up and see her sitting by the window, staring into the darkness, her shoulders shaking quietly. I pretended to be asleep because I didn't know how to comfort her. I was just a little girl. Our meals were often just rice and vegetables from the garden. Mom would say she'd already eaten, pushing more food toward me. But I knew she was lying. I could see her stomach was empty. But I was too young to refuse, too hungry to insist she eat instead. When it rained heavily, before we had proper shelter, Mom and I would huddle together under whatever covering we could find. I was scared of the thunder, scared of the leaking roof. But I tried so hard to be brave because I didn't want Mom to worry more than she already did. In those moments, holding each other in the dark with rain pouring around us, I would close my eyes and wish for something I barely understood. I wished for a strong man who could protect us, who could fix our roof, who could make Mom smile instead of cry. At school, we had an art class where the teacher asked us to draw our dream family. I drew Mom, I drew myself, and then I drew a third figure, just an outline, no face, no details. The teacher asked me who that person was, and I said quietly, "That's my future dad." I didn't dare dream about having a real father, someone specific. I could only imagine some father somewhere, someday. Every night before I fell asleep, I would whisper prayers that Mom couldn't hear. I prayed that Mom would meet someone good, not someone rich or famous, just someone kind. Someone who would love Mom and not make her cry. Someone who would teach me the things fathers are supposed to teach their daughters. Someone who would stay, not leave like the shadow figure in my past that I barely remembered. I didn't need a father with money or a big house. I just needed a father who was good. A father whose presence would make Mom feel safe. A father who would look at me like I mattered. That's all I wanted. That's all I dreamed about in my small child's heart. I remember that day so clearly. It's printed in my memory like a photograph. A tall man came to our house. He was big, much bigger than Mom, and I was scared. I hid behind Mom's back, peeking out just enough to see him. But Uncle D, that's what Mom told me to call him, didn't force me to come out. He didn't demand I greet him or shake his hand like some adults do. He just smiled gently and started talking to Mom in a soft voice I'd never heard from a man before. His voice was calm like a quiet river, not loud or angry. He brought fresh fish with him and said he'd cook fish porridge for me to eat. I watched from my hiding spot as he moved around our small kitchen with surprising ease. I'd never seen a man cook before. The man in my earliest memories, the one Mom never talked about, never cooked. He only shouted. But Uncle D was different. He talked to Mom while he cooked, asking her questions, listening to her answers, making her laugh softly. That sound, Mom's laugh, was so rare that it made me brave enough to peek out a little more from behind her back. As days turned into weeks, Uncle D kept coming back. And every time he came, he brought something. Sometimes fish, sometimes vegetables, sometimes just his presence and his smile. He started teaching me things. He showed me how to fish, holding my small hands on the fishing rod, patiently guiding me through each step without ever getting frustrated when I did it wrong. He let me ride on his back, carrying me around the garden while making funny sounds that made me giggle. Every evening he'd sit with me and help me with my letters, praising my handwriting even when it was messy. "Your writing is beautiful, Maya," he'd say. "If you write this nicely, your teacher will give you 10 points." When my toys broke, he'd fix them without complaining, his big hands working carefully to make everything right again. When I got sick one night with a high fever, I woke up to find Uncle D sitting beside my mat, wiping my forehead with a cool cloth. Mom was sleeping nearby, exhausted from worrying. But Uncle D stayed awake, watching over me through the night. He protected me from the aggressive chicken that liked to peck people. He sang lullabies to help me sleep when Mom had to go out. He never raised his voice. He never made Mom cry. And slowly, something amazing happened. I started waiting for him to come home each day. But with this joy came confusion in my small heart. I'd watch Uncle D with Mom, see how gentle he was, how he made her smile, how he worked beside her in the garden, how he treated me like I was precious. And I'd think to myself, is Uncle D my father? But I was too scared to ask. What if I called him Dad and he didn't like it? What if saying that word out loud would make him go away like the other man did? What if I was wrong and he was just being nice but didn't really want to be my father? The fear of losing him was bigger than the hope of claiming him. So I tried something small. Instead of just calling him Uncle, I started calling him Uncle D. It seemed like such a tiny change, but to me it meant everything. It was adding his name, making it personal, making him specifically mine in some small way. And you know what? He loved it. Every time I said Uncle D, his whole face would light up. Mom would smile too, stroking my hair with tears in her eyes. But happy tears this time, not sad ones. Still, I wasn't brave enough to say the word Dad. I kept waiting for some sign, some moment that would tell me it was okay. I didn't know what that moment would look like, but I knew I'd recognize it when it came. Mom told me that today was special, that we'd have guests coming, and I needed to wear my nice clothes. I was so excited. I loved when people visited because it meant our little house would be full of voices and laughter, instead of just quiet. I helped Mom and Uncle Day prepare everything. I peeled garlic carefully, trying not to drop any pieces. I fed the chickens their vegetables. I helped arrange the chairs and table. Mom explained that today was special because Uncle D was free now. I didn't understand what free meant exactly. Wasn't he always free? But I could see both Mom and Uncle D were happier than usual, smiling more, moving around with light steps. The whole house felt different, like something wonderful was about to happen. I could smell the delicious food cooking, chicken, fish, grilled meat, and my stomach rumbled with anticipation. But there was something else in the air too, something I couldn't name yet, like the feeling before a birthday surprise. The village chief arrived first, and he was so kind to me. He asked what grade I was in, complimented my dress, and asked me to sing for him. I was shy at first, but Mom encouraged me, so I sang the duck song that Mom had taught me. Everyone clapped and praised me, and I felt so proud and happy. We all sat down to eat, and the food was wonderful. But then the village chief said something that made my heart stop beating for a second. He looked at me with warm grandfatherly eyes and said, "Maya, you should call Uncle Day Dad Day now." The whole table went quiet. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. I looked at Mom. Her eyes were shiny with tears, but she was smiling and nodding at me. I looked at Uncle D. He was looking at me too, and his eyes were so warm, so full of hope and love. But I was frozen. The word I'd been wanting to say for so long was right there in my throat, but I was terrified. What if I said it, and something went wrong? What if this perfect moment disappeared? So I just looked down at my plate, feeling my cheeks burn with shyness. Uncle D reached over and gently stroked my hair. He didn't force me. He didn't say, "Go ahead, call me Dad." He just touched my hair softly and let me be. The dinner continued. People talked and laughed, but I couldn't stop thinking about those words. Call him Dad. That night, after all the guests had left and the house was quiet again, I lay in my bed, unable to sleep. Mom was washing dishes in the kitchen. Uncle D was cleaning up the last of the evening's mess. The house was peaceful, filled with the satisfaction of a good day. But my mind was racing. I thought about everything Uncle D had done for me and Mom. I thought about how he taught me to fish, how he carried me on his back, how he stayed up all night when I was sick, how he made Mom laugh, how he never left even when things were hard. I thought about my friends at school who had fathers, and I realized I had a father too. He'd been right here all along. I just needed to be brave enough to say it. My heart pounded as I called out softly, "Dad, Uncle Day was walking past my sleeping area. He stopped immediately, completely still. Did you just call me Dad?" His voice was shaking. I sat up, looking at him in the dim light. "Yes, Dad D. I love you." For a moment, nothing happened. Then Uncle D dropped to his knees beside me and pulled me into his arms, holding me so tight I could barely breathe. His shoulders were shaking. He was crying, but these were happy tears, I could tell. Mom rushed in from the kitchen, saw us, and started crying too. She joined our hug, and the three of us stayed like that for what felt like forever. Just holding each other, crying happy tears, finally complete. That night, I slept better than I ever had in my entire life, because I finally had what I'd been wishing for under the stars every night. I had a father, not because of paperwork or biology, but because of choice and love. Uncle D chose to love me, and I chose to love him back, and that made us family in the truest, deepest way possible. For me, Maya, just a little girl trying to understand the big, complicated world around me. Having a father isn't about names on documents or blood connections. It's about the person who wakes up early to cook porridge when I'm hungry. It's about the person who patiently teaches me each letter and number, celebrating every small success, like it's something miraculous. It's about the person who stands between me and danger, whether that danger is a pecking chicken or a rainy night without proper shelter. It's about the person who makes my mom smile instead of cry, who brings laughter into our home instead of shouting and fear. It's about the person who shows up every single day, not because they have to, but because they want to. I don't need to understand words like divorce or blended family or any of the complicated adult terms. All I need to know is this: my dad loves me. I love my dad, and that love is real. It doesn't matter that he didn't know me when I was born. What matters is that he chose to know me now, chose to stay, chose to be my father every day, moving forward. Love doesn't need blood to prove itself. Sometimes the best father isn't the one who gave you life biologically, but the one who chooses to give you love daily. Sometimes family isn't about destiny or fate. It's about choice. Maya chose D, and D chose Maya right back. And in that mutual choosing, in that decision to love each other, despite having no obligation to do so, they created something more powerful than any biological connection could ever be. They created chosen family. They created the kind of bond that's built not on accident of birth, but on purpose, commitment, and genuine affection. Thank you for listening to this story through Maya's eyes, through the perspective of a child who just wanted to belong and finally found where she fits. Please subscribe to Life Single Review to see more stories about real love and authentic family connections. Hit that like button if Maya's story touched your heart. And please, share in the comments about the father or mother figure in your own life. That person who chose to love you, even when they didn't have to. Your stories matter, and we'd love to hear them. Until next time, remember that the family we choose can be just as powerful as the family we're born into. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you in the next video.